What's up, everybody? It is Tuesday, and you know what that means. It means it's time for another Vinyl Side Chat. And so with that being, I just want to introduce our album review or history of the day, Radiohead, The Bends.
She says don't go away under lights feel sad, 'cause she loves it when I hold her, and she asks if I could stay. Sometimes it comes in waves, there's no other way. She rests her head upon my shoulder, and she asks if I could stay.
Once again, if you're tuning in again, you know it is another Tuesday night. I am your host, Tony Pagor, from the band Park in Maine. And so once again, coming to you another Tuesday, talking to you about albums that really mean a lot to me as a musician, as a recording engineer, as a songwriter, all the above. So if you like what you've been seeing so far, this is already episode 5, which is pretty crazy to think about. If you like what you've been seeing so far, please hit that like button right now. Please, hit the heart, hit the whoa face, whatever the case might be. Show some love here if you enjoy what you're seeing, whether it's right now or you're watching later in the replay of this. Like I said, we're just super excited to be back for another week. It's crazy to think that this is already starting month 2 of this. We're going to keep on going on right now. So like I said, if you're a fan of the show, please hit that like button, hit that heart, hit that wolf face, and let's get into this album right now. So Radiohead as a band, to me itself, has been this evolving kind of thing that continues to push what music can be. And their sound, if you follow Radiohead at all, it's gone in a variety of different directions. However, for me, this album here that we're talking about today, has always connected with me. It's always that album that I can go back to if I haven't listened to Radiohead in a while, and the one that I automatically connect to right away. So after last week's episode, I took my own advice. I came and I said I need to listen to some music for a while, and I looked at my records and I kind of looked over everything and I tried to find out something that was speaking to me, and this was the album that did it. And instantly when I put it on, and I put on the title track here, Planetelics, I just got put in a place and I couldn't stop listening to it. And to me, it's one of those albums that for me, it's front to back, don't stop it. And I just really just sat down here and enjoyed every second of what was going on. So if, like I said, with this album itself, let's kind of get into it and talk about what's so great about it. Now, if you remember like last week's episode, which we talked about Pearl Jam, it was talking about the sophomore type of album. And like if you didn't watch last week's episode with Pearl Jam, it can be found at the Park in Maine Band YouTube page, which I'll post once again in the link. And you can see all the other previous episodes that we have done so far. But keeping in theme with this, sophomore albums make or break bands more times than not. And so here you go. And so we'll talk about this. So it's their second studio album. It was released on March 13th, 1995 by Parlophone Records in the United Kingdom, and then on Capitol Records had the imprint here in the United States of America. After their hit debut, a lot of people know the band for the song Creep, and when I was younger and didn't know much about Radiohead, I kind of bought this thinking that Creep was on this actual album, but really it came off their first album that was called Pablo Honey. Now, they had managed with that song Creep to kind of hit MTV rotation really heavy. And as the case was for a lot of bands that really truly made it at that time period. And the band got described and thrown into, I think unfairly, as being like a Nirvana light type of band. And you see around this time, you got to think, all right, Pablo Honey's coming out. Nirvana has just stopped as a band. Kurt is now, has unfortunately died. And now you got the music industry that's completely trying to fill, you got one record label that's trying to fill the gap that Nirvana is now left on their roster, and then you have all these other labels that are like, we gotta plug bands in now because now we can get back into this landscape and we can start getting back into this into the game. And so you started finding that they were throwing anything out. Some bands were hits, some bands we kind of entered into this world in the mid-90s of kind of just like one-hit wonders is what we kind of got ourselves into, I thought, time and time again. So Radiohead hears this kind of news, and they got taken away by this MTV culture, and like several other bands that were making it big at that time, that's not how they wanted to go about their business. They didn't want to be recognized by this. So sonically out of the gate, you listen to this album, and as soon as the intro track comes in, you know it was something different, something that Radiohead was going in a brand new direction. All right, they wanted to be way more than labeled as a grunge band, and so they began incorporating far more cryptic lyrics. They started using keyboards quite often throughout, and then sonically there was a lot more of just sounds that were being made. Guitar tracks where the guitar itself was being pushed in the type of noises it could make. All right, so much like you had Rage Against the Machine that was kind of going this rap way, you know, in this rap-inspired way of making the guitar work by like a turntable type effects. You had Radiohead going the opposite way that was, you know, making pad sounds out of guitars and swell sounds and whale noises almost out of these guitars, that parts that they were crafting, which is totally unlike what they were doing on their first album. So in 1994, okay, they get off a tour. They've been touring and everything on Creep. They're like, we got to fix this. Let's go and start writing again. So in '94, at the beginning of the year, they were going to start in January, and then their producer started working with another band, so they had to push back to February, which was kind of, it was okay because the label wanted them to put out an album by October of that year, of 1994. So they go to Rack Studios in London, and they start developing their demos. So York was kind of the main songwriter early on, especially. He would get up early, they said. He would go to the studio before anyone else was there, and he would just get on the piano and he would play through songs. According to their producer, John Leckie is his name. And Leckie, as he was kind of sitting there listening to Tom work on all this, he said the new songs were just kind of pouring out of him. Everything was coming out, and every song that he brought to the table, he said automatically was better than anything on Pablo Honey. So there was a lot of people that were getting excited about this. Now, as they start developing these songs, York is starting to kind of let off the reins a little bit more. He comes up with the initial ideas, but then they started taking more of a true band mentality and started working with collaboration. So Nice Dream became a simple 4-chord song that York came with, and then was expanded by all these extra parts that guitarist Ed O'Brien and Johnny Greenwood added to this big introduction. You had the song Just, that was written by Johnny Greenwood, who, according to Tom York, said this was a song where he was trying to get as many chords into a song that he possibly could from an arrangement standpoint. Pablo Honey itself was kind of created, you know, going back to that, was kind of created like a lot of young bands that tend to write music where a lot of the players are playing the same thing. They're playing the same notes, they're playing the same chords, especially the guitar sections. A lot of the guitar players were actually just all playing the same chords over and over, which is, yeah, it can give a thick sound and everything, but it doesn't give you a really broad sound itself that's like a huge sound. Okay, it can give you like this thicker, muddy, fuzzy wall of sound, but it doesn't really do much in terms of like really making a band sound huge. And so Radiohead, during the bends, they really made it a point that each guitarist was going to be responsible for doing something different in the sonic landscape of that was going on. So York was generally always going to play the rhythm guitar because he was also singing, and then you saw O'Brien, he was more into adding effects, all right? And then you had Johnny Greenwood, which would play a lot of the lead guitar parts that were featured on the album. And then the band also had this other thing when you was talking to O'Brien about what was going on, is that when they were writing the album, they also played a lot more with dynamics. So if a part sounded great with just like an acoustic guitar and drums going, then that's all they needed. If it had bass and drums just going on and it sounded great, they used a lot more restraint when writing certain things, trying to add, you know, why add something more when it really just sounded great with sometimes being a little simplistic, which is kind of weird because when you think about Radiohead, you think about all these different layers and these different sonic things that they're doing, but really at the heart of it, they were kind of stripping things down, you know, overall to kind of bring some clarity so you could hear some of this other textures that they were putting in. So the first 2 months of the record recording were difficult. So while they were pleased with their work, Leckie and the engineer Nigel Godrich, Nigel has kind of worked with the band ever since, they felt the pressure to cover up the song, move on from their last album, Pablo Honey. So EMI, the record label, set an October date, as I said, in 1994, and suggested Radiohead should first work on a single, which caused all types of problems. The band couldn't agree on a single. They didn't think, and then every time they would get a song that they would think the single, they would all think that it wasn't good enough. The label kept on showing up. They kept on saying, we haven't figured this out yet. The label would go away. They'd show up. Long story short, the label wanted something, and now you're getting to this point where they should have been done with the record. They're not even done recording it yet, and now, to make things worse, the band had already agreed to go out on a tour a month and a half. So they were supposed to go in the studio, record a new album, and then go out on tour. And instead, now it looked like they were going to have to come back after tour to finish up the album. And really, after talking to the producers and everything, they said that tensions were at an all-time high with how all this was going. And so they ended the rack sessions. They went on. Radiohead basically recorded a couple songs that would appear actually on the album. But they also put out an EP called My Iron Lung EP, and by doing so, that was kind of a way of like keeping the label at bay and everything. And so they go on tour, they come back, and it was actually like amazing. They came back and they like knocked it out of the park. And so what we ended up started seeing here too is that Johnny Greenwood was actually starting to discover his signature sound. And so for a lot of you guitar players and everything out there, what he did is he relied heavily on Telecasters. Okay, after watching, you know, the making of this album, I mean, this is why I wanted to own a Tele. This is why I wanted to get into Fender amps. He played a Fender 85, which is slightly different. A lot of bands, like, you know, bigger bands, like, tend to say they love playing tube amps and everything. But this was actually a solid state amp, this Fender 85, that he really fell in love with. And he played through, it was a Marshall Shredmaster. It's an old stomp box pedal that Marshall used to make. And that is that heavy tone that you guys hear throughout the whole album. Is that Shredmaster pedal by Marshall. So check out that stuff. You can still find them like rare, but I know every time I found those Shredmaster pedals and everything, you know, they're like well over $200, closer to $300 for these pedals if you want to find them today. So the album, like I said, when they started re-recording it, as what I should have said, is that they got back. They resumed in June at Richard Branson's Oxfordshire studio complex. The Manor is what it's called. And then they ended up finishing the rest of the album at Abbey Road Studios, where also some of the album was mixed. Now, there was a problem, though, as the album was being mixed. The label also wanted more of like an American sound on the mix, and so they actually took that EP. They took all the songs on this record because the EP had came out for My Iron Lung and it didn't go over well. The record label wasn't really truly happy how it was mixed, and so they sent it over to America, where they had it remixed itself. So you had Sean Slade and Paul, what's his name, Golderi, remix the album in the United States and put out the final mix that you guys are hearing about this. So with the band itself, if we look at this from a songwriting perspective and everything like that, we see it being more cryptic with lyrics. We also start seeing more global themes being applied here into this. So while you had songs that were more mature in fashion and kind of were talking about personal things, like, you know, things like My Iron Lung, which everyone thought was like going to be this, like, unfortunate, like almost like a suicide note that Tom York was putting out there. A lot of people were concerned that with that song, that he was kind of just making himself the next poster child for a suicide in the rock scene. But you had other things that, like Fake Plastic Trees was inspired by commercial developments in the Canary Wharf, while Sulk was written in response to the Hungerford Massacre. And the Hungerford Massacres occurred in 1987, and basically there was an unemployed man who went on a rampage. He killed 16 people, including himself, and it was just one of those crazy acts of gun violence and whatnot, and so that's what that song was about. And then he even got into kind of incorporating stuff into lyrical work. There was a book called The Famished Road, which is Street Spirit, aka Fade Out, was written about that, and also was inspired by the music of R.E.M. So you got Tom York also now in this sophomore album going deeper and deeper as a songwriter, getting more and more cryptic and turning to the guy that we know today as well. Now, the artwork of the album like this. This was done by Stanley Donwood. Stanley Donwood has stayed once again on the team, creative team for Radiohead, and he created the artwork for this. Now, originally York and Donwood were going to go and go into a hospital and find an iron lung to put on the top of this, and when they actually got to the hospital and saw what an iron lung looked like, what the machine looked like, they didn't think it was that cool looking. So instead they found this CPR mannequin that they found, and they used this. They thought this was way more interesting, and this is what the image actually is a CPR mannequin that they found at the hospital that they were going to. So how would the album perform? It produced 5 chart singles. My Iron Lung was released in 1994, and then High and Dry, Fake Plastic Trees, Just, and then Radiohead's first top 5 UK single, Street Spirit, Fade Out, was the 5th one that was on there. Okay, so the band reached number 4 and stayed on the chart for 160 weeks in the UK. In the United States, did not do so well. It kind of got released, didn't do anything, and then basically a year after its release date, we started seeing that it did re-chart, and that was pretty much due because they put out the Fake Plastic Trees music video, and that music video is actually what kind of breathed new life into the album and got it charting back up into it actually broke through the top 100 Billboard chart here in the United States. It is definitely their lowest charting album in the US ever. It would eventually turn platinum in the United States, but it was much more a worldwide thing where people were actually recognizing what was going on there. So once again, the album itself, in terms of influence, it really influenced a big generation of British bands, especially the falsetto-laden kind of lyrics and abilities that York had. So you had bands like Coldplay, Keane, James Blunt, probably would not exist without his inspiration. So I hope that you learned something about Radiohead and their album, The Bends, here today. In the future, if there's something more that you want to know about, maybe if you want to know more about gear that the bands are using on albums that I'm doing this, or if you want to know about the producers that are on these albums, or if you kind of want more of a track-by-track breakdown sometimes, I'm going to try to maybe mix it up here in the future. But if you like the format and like how I'm presenting information this, let me know in the comments. I'm willing to try something different if you want to see it. Like I said, if you like the format, just hit the like button and everything and the heart button now. If you want me to switch it up and there's something else, please let me know. If there's an album you want me to review for next week, let me know as well. Give me some suggestions. Let me know where you want me to go from here. Leave comments below. So, on to local news and everything like that. So, when looking through the local music scene and stuff, there was a lot of stuff that was pretty quiet. I did talk about that James Nearney show. So, if you are going up into the Michigan area, they are going to be playing this weekend. Look up James Nearney and the Bevy Blue. Like I said, it's like a funk show, blues show that's going to be mixed together. Tickets are on sale now, so please do check that out if you're feeling like going up into the Michigan area this Saturday, I believe, is that show. But if we're looking in terms of show announcements and everything else like that, I will tell you that the band Releaser, they are a Chicago-based band. They will be playing their first headlining Chicago show at the Beat Kitchen. Now, this show is not all the way until January 25th. The openers are going to include friends of ours, the Burst and Bloom, Dreamhouse, which is this cool band from Milwaukee, and actually our band Park and Main is going to be on the show. We will be the openers for that show. You can already get tickets at ticketweb.com. The show is 17 and older, and tickets are $15 in advance and $20 at the door. For us as a band, I know with Park and Main, this is probably one of the biggest shows we've ever been asked to play in the Chicago market. So I hope you get tickets today. We are going to be pushing this thing hard, and tickets are going to sell out to this venue. If you've never been to Beat Kitchen before, it's like a 300 cap room somewhere in there. So be one of those lucky people to get in there and see this show. It is going to sell out. The other thing that I wanted to announce today, so those of you that are watching and everything, is that Park and Main does have some other big news besides this show that we're super excited about as well, and that is that we have added a 4th member to Park and Main. His name is Mill, his last name is Savage, and for a lot of you that know him, he has playing in the Northwest Indiana area, and he's played in various bands. You know, growing up, and I've known Mill for quite some time now. He definitely is bringing a cool, unique set of skills to the band that we're super excited to show you as well. So if you know Mill, please give him a shout out and everything. Please congratulate him. I know he's been super excited working behind the scenes and everything with the band for like the past month and a half right now. So please, 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 you know, like I said, make him feel some love, show him some comments down below, welcoming him to the park and main family. Now, please pay attention to all those announcements and everything about that show that's going to be coming out this Thursday, where you can actually see us perform as our new four-piece as well. So we're super excited. So you'll have 2 opportunities to see us here in the near future, and we couldn't be happier about that. To get a little bit silly, I guess today I did have a request to talk about something else. I wouldn't know it's technically local music, but there's a buddy of mine. His name's Jeff Nosich, aka Puco. He wanted me to talk about this T-Baby. So I guess we'll have a little fun with this one. In case you guys don't know who T-Baby is a rapper from the Detroit area that put out a smash YouTube hit that's called "It's Cold in the D." Now, unfortunately, it's one of those things that a lot of people checked out for the wrong reasons and not the right reasons. But over 8 million people have checked out that original music video that is out there, and it is a YouTube smash. Like I said, 8 million and counting, more than any video that I've ever put out there, so more power to them. But if you want to check it out, like I said, it started off as kind of like this, you know, thing, unfortunately. Now, T-Baby has released a remix of her song to try to up the quality and add a new video to it. But also what we've seen is there have been a lot of bands that have covered this. Probably most famously, New Kids on the Block on one of their tours in the past couple of years here has actually covered the song "It's So Cold in the D." So, Jeff, there you go. You wanted me to say a little bit about this, and sure, we'll have a little fun today and do that. So that goes out to you. And I'm really only bringing it up because it's so cold outside here in Northwest Indiana that, you know, I'll just roll with it. So thanks, Jeff. There's the one you probably get. I'm not sure if I'll come back to something else like that in the future, but for all the watching you do of the show, I feel that I owed it to you. So like I said, that wraps up another week of the Vinyl Side Chat. As always, the playback of this week's episode and every episode that we've recorded so far is going to be at the Park and Main YouTube page. I always post the link to our page the next day on our Facebook page, so please check out Facebook tomorrow, check out my personal page, and you'll get the link and everything to our YouTube page where you can rewatch this video, share it with a friend, or go back. We've made a playlist and everything where you can watch every episode that we have put out of Vinyl Side Chat up until this point. Next week, I'm going to do my best to get Mill actually on the show. So if you have any questions for Mill, anything about his musical style, what's his favorite food to eat, you know, what's his favorite holiday, what he wants for Christmas this year, what you guys, whatever kind of questions you want to ask, please put them in the comments below or send me a message and I can get an interview so you guys can get used to or I should say get to know Mill, all right, moving forward. So like I said, I will do my best to get him on the show next week so you can learn a little bit more about him and a little bit more about his music influences as well. Maybe I'll actually have him pick out the album that we go and research on next week. So like I said, continue to spread the word about this channel. And keep on watching in the future. If you have stuff that you want to talk about in the future, like I said, if you're in a band you want us to talk about music that you have coming out, or if you're in a band you got live shows that we want us to get bodies into those venues, please let me know. So make sure while you're there at our YouTube channel to subscribe so that you never miss any content that we are putting out as a band or our weekly show that we have right here. So until I see you guys again, take some time from your day to go out and get lost in some music. You'll be happy that you did. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next week. Have a great week. Bye.